In this video, we're going to review the Pecron E1500 Pro. I've reviewed their E2000 LFP in the past, and I was very impressed with the performance and the cost. And they just rolled out this new model, which has some pretty unique features, namely a very competitive price point when compared to various other models on the market that are comparable in features. In this video, we're going to cover the following points. We're going to go over the primary specs and features of this model. We're going to run it through various tests showing the DC and AC efficiency, the pure sine wave capability, and we're going to look at the solar charging capabilities. We'll also show how it stacks up against the competition. We'll answer the question, is this a good fit for the preparedness community? I'll disclose how I get paid for these videos, and then at the very end, I'll give my final thoughts on this unit. Now, if anytime you want to check out this model, I'll put a link in the description and comments section below, along with the 10% off coupon. You can use the coupon code PRE15PRO to get 10% off. So let's jump in. Features and specs. Each company that I've worked with on these solar generators has a niche that they're trying to target. For Pecron, what they do is they focus on being competitive in cost. They don't have all the bells and whistles of the bigger brands such as EcoFlow or Blue Eddy. And for example, you can't connect this via internet or Bluetooth to an app. You can't change any of the settings. What you see is what you get. If you don't need all the bells and whistles of the apps and all the other things that the other companies roll out, instead you just want to save money, well, I think this is a model that you might want to look at. Now, before I run through the specs on this unit, I would recommend a previous video detailing how to calculate your power needs if the grid were to go down. In this video, I'm going to give abbreviated versions on each section so you're not completely lost. But again, if you want more details, go back and check out that video. So let's jump into the specs. The first one is a battery. This one is a standard lithium-ion battery. As probably many of you know that watch these videos, more manufacturers are moving over to lithium iron phosphate batteries as they can handle more charge cycles. Lithium iron phosphate are sometimes rated as much as 300 to 3,500 cycles, but lithium iron phosphate, it does come at a cost. They're much more heavier. Now, the upside of standard lithium ion batteries, which this one has, is that they're lighter. The weight of this particular unit is about 33 pounds. Now, Jackery, which is the model that this is clearly, I hate to use the word copying, but very, very clearly competing with, it uses the same battery technology, the same battery chemistry as this one does. And this, Jackery is targeting the outdoor audience that want lightweight devices. So that's why they, I think, copied the battery technology. They're going after the Jackery 1500, if we're being honest. Now, we'll talk a little more, in a moment about how this compares to the Jackery's unit. Spoiler alert, it's about half the price of a comparable unit, and it's actually got a few more features. Let's talk about battery storage to start off with. This particular unit can hold 1,450 watt hours. So you may be asking, well, what does that number mean? While I do go into much more detail in the video that I referenced a moment ago, here's what you need to know. Watt hours tells us how much energy this device can store. It's the capacity of this device. It's similar to saying a vehicle can store 20 gallons of gasoline. These devices, they can store a certain amount of energy. Let's put this into practical terms. Let's say this light bulb uses 40 watts to power it, and it actually does. In 1 hour, it would pull 40 watt hours. Since this unit has a capacity of 1,450 watt hours, if I were to divide 1,450, the capacity of this device, by 40 watts, or 40, let's just keep it in numbers, the amount that this light bulb pulls, we would get 36.25. So what we can do is use this information to derive 36.25, which will tell us how many hours this device will power this light bulb at 40 watts each hour. Now, it doesn't come to this exact number due to efficiency issues, which we'll talk about momentarily, but if you understand this basic concept, you'll have an idea of how much this device can power various devices. Now, in a spreadsheet that I'm going to share with you in this video, I have a calculator that has a common household items that you may want to power. And you can define the quantity for each device in the spreadsheet. And I'll go through an example in a moment. And what it does is it indicates how many of them in the spreadsheet that you want to power, and it will show you how long this device will power the devices and for how long. Again, we'll go over that a little more later in the video. Now, with this information, you'll quickly be able to see how much this device can power and for how long. So let's go ahead and jump into AC output. This device can output continuously 2,000 watts maximum, continuously. Now, it can go up to 4,000 watts of surge. Surge is an amount that is indicative of devices when you plug them in. They initially will draw a lot of power and then they'll come down. You'll see things like refrigerators or fans. Typically, any device that has a motor, it has that initial need to spin up to get to speed, and it will draw a lot. And then as it gets up to speed, the amount of power that it needs to continue will drop down. That's why you'll see the rating of surge on devices. So this one, it can output a maximum in a surge situation of 4,000 watts. Now, as far as the 2,000 watts continuous output capability, I don't recommend that when you sit down to calculate how much you're going to need to power after an emergency if the grid were to go down, or maybe you're camping, based on this maximum output of the device. Why? Well, if you were to buy a car and it says that it can go up to an RPM of, let's say, 7,000, well, you're not going to be driving around town all day at 7,000 on the RPM on your tachometer. It's because you'll destroy the engine. So what I always recommend, and this kind of goes true for gas generators, solar generators, I typically advise don't go over 50% output capability at any given time. So on this device, if you're planning to use this to power devices after a disaster and the power were to go out, you can expect that you could consistently run about 1,000 watts worth of devices. 1,000 is 50% of the maximum output of this device, again, which is 2,000 watts. Again, I'll reference a video that I talked about a moment ago. I go into that in a lot more detail. So let's talk about plugins. On the front of this device, you've got a total of 13 output plugins. There's a DC input, you've got AC input on the front, and you can plug in the power cord directly here without an extra power brick. It also has a display which indicates the percentage left and how many hours it can operate under the current load that you have it on. It has 3 15 amp AC plugins that support up to, again, 2,000 watts. We've got 3 12 volt DC outputs. We've got 6 USB DC outputs. And on the side, you have the exhaust fans. And on the top, you have a 15 watt phone charging area. Let's talk about charging this device. From an AC plug-in, you can charge up to 1,100 watts. For these particular devices, that's pretty standard these days. As far as plugging it into solar, you can get 800 watts, and this device has an MPPT charger built in. And I'll walk you through the solar charging setup momentarily as I was playing around with this. Now, you can also both charge from AC and the solar panels at the same time for a combined charging of 2,000. So let's say the grid were to go down, you have 800 watts of solar panels, maybe you have a gas generator and you just want to charge this up quickly. You could plug this in to your generator or a wall socket if the power is still operational in your area and maybe it's going off and on while you're charging solar. And also you can charge this with DC charger in your car. It's pretty slow, but it can be done. Test. So let's talk about the first test I ran, which was to test the AC efficiency. What I did is I put this under 75% load on the device and I ran it until it drained the battery all the way down. Now, what I found is the efficiency on AC, whenever you plug in devices like, light bulbs, heating plates, I found that it had a 75% efficiency. Now, how did I get that number? What I did is, again, I put this under 75% load, meaning that I pulled 1,500 watts continuously. And I did this with a space heater and a heat gun. Now, 1,500 watts is a lot, but the total output capability is 2,000 watts. So we ran it at 75% or 1,500 watts, and I divided the total output. Total output, I determined that by using a small device called a kilowatt meter, and it showed on the front that when we drained the battery all the way down, it output 1,080 watt hours. So what we can do is we can quickly determine the efficiency. What we did was, again, we just simply divided 1,080 by 1,450, and that gives us 75%. So for DC efficiency, I ran a test on it, and I got an 80% efficiency. Again, like the AC test, how I did this is I simply ran this under load with the device, and at the end, I was able to get 1,152 watt hours. So I divided that number by the total capacity of the battery, which is 1,450, and that's how we get 80%. Now, these devices, these newer ones, what you'll notice is a lot of them, they'll charge very quickly on the first 80%. And when you plug them into a wall socket, an AC wall socket. And what you'll see on this particular model, if you look at the video, is we were getting 1,100 watts as we were charging this. And the total time to charge via AC from 0 to 100, it took about an hour and a half. But what happens is once you hit that 80% mark and the battery's now at 80%, it will just click and all of a sudden start slowing down. And it went down a little, not a lot, but it went down to about 900 watts. A lot of the units that I test will usually drop by half of the maximum charging amount, but this one still has a pretty solid charging time for that last 20%. It will charge at 900 watts. And what this is referred to and why it just suddenly kind of slows down at 80%, most batteries do this, is because of what's called the stadium effect. If you were to go to a game or somewhere at a stadium, what you'll notice is if you were to get there early and you try to go to your seat, it's pretty easy. If there's not a lot of people in your way and there's no one there. But if you come in that last 5 minutes and you try to get your seat and the place is packed, it's hard to get around people. And so what happens is these devices, when anything under 80%, when they're kind of, there's not a lot in the battery, so to speak, they'll charge really quickly. But when you hit that last 20%, it starts slowing down. And again, that's why they call it the stadium effect. Now, as far as pure sine wave tests, I test at 0, 50%, 75%, and 100% under load. So I test it when it has no load, 50% load, 75, and 100. To my surprise, under each one of the values, I found that this device pretty much gave me a clean sine wave. And I don't think I've seen that really on any of the other devices I've tested. I mean, they weren't 100% clean, but compared to a lot of the ones that I see, they usually have spikes in the sine wave when you get up into the 75, 100%. But this one, it was a pretty smooth sine wave. Now, when you charge with solar, it can handle up to a total of 800 watts, which is fairly average for a device this size. A lot of the newer devices are, solar generators are allowing more and more wattage as far as when you go to charge these. So let's get to the part where we talk about the competition and how this stacks up. So in this part of the video, we're going to look at the competition by looking at a spreadsheet. I've tested various models over the last year, and we're going to see how this stacks up. Now, and again, I'll share a link to this spreadsheet below. Here's the 3 Pecron models I've tested. Here's their prices. Now, $8.99 does not show the coupon. If you apply the coupon, it gets down to about $8.10 or $8.20, somewhere in that range. All right, let's look at a few things that we've come up with. Again, we talked about AC efficiency was 75%. When compared to other units on the market, this is actually on the low end. 75%, as you can see, is pretty low. There's only 2 lower, the Goal 0, 1500, and the EcoFlow Delta 2, and the other ones on the market perform much better. Now, as far as DC efficiency goes, again, we'll look at this. Here is the Pecron 1500. It's about right in the middle of the pack, so pretty average. And this is the most important one that a lot of people usually want to look at, is the cost per watt hour. And I have actual, and actual means after we ran the test, when we got that 75% efficiency rating on AC, what does this actually come out to? Well, with the coupon, this actually comes out, despite it not being overly efficient, it actually comes out to the most affordable unit that I've tested so far, the most affordable model. So while the efficiency is a little on the low end, not horribly, but definitely on the low end, if you were to look at what the price is and how much you're paying for each watt hour, you're getting a pretty good deal. So let's look at this sheet. I won't go over this exhaustively, but this is just a second one. This shows the actual information that goes into a lot more details. I've covered most of this information in the video already, but if you want to kind of nerd out, so to speak, on the specs, you can either go to their website or you can just go here. And again, I just break all this down compared to other units. The last one, and this one's very unique, and I apologize if it's a little small on the screen. I can make this a little bigger. There's a lot of information here. This is a calculator. And again, I'll share the link to this. This is, if you look down here, it's called Capability Calculator. And the last one here is a Pecron. And what this does is I show powering different devices. So if you were to say, hey, I've got a small refrigerator and I want to power it, you can choose how many you want. Let's just take a typical American 18 cubic foot refrigerator. Let's say I have one. A disaster's hit. The power's gone out. It's going to pull roughly about 100 watts, anywhere from 100 to 300 watts. That number will vary. But what we do is if we come down here, we can see that, it will power this device for about close to 11 hours. Now, again, if you were to have solar panels set up, you can extend that time. But as you can see, as you start playing around with these things, let's say I've got a laptop that I also want to run after a disaster. Well, we've now cut our time down to 6 hours, again, assuming you don't plug this into a solar panel. Once you plug these into solar panels, you extend the battery, or rather the capacity, how much you have stored. So this is a good sheet that I always recommend people play around with to get an idea of what this device can power and for how long. You can see all the information down here in the bottom. This tells your duration and so forth. Good fit for the prepper community. So this channel focuses on emergency preparedness, aka the prepper community. And the question always comes up, is this a good fit for this community? Here's my take. It packs a lot of punch for a small device. It's pretty small, but it can do quite a lot, especially, and the biggest selling point of this device is the price point. It's very competitive with the coupon. And again, as we looked at the spreadsheet, even though the efficiency is not high, when you look at the price per kilowatt hour, it's a pretty good deal. Of course, the closest competitor to this is the Jackery 1500. And again, you can see how it compares to the Jackery 1500 in the spreadsheet. Spoiler alert, it has about double the solar charging capability as a Jackery. It's got 4 times the charging speed from an AC charging source, like a plug-in on your wall, compared to the Jackery 1500. And again, it comes in at about half the price. They're almost identical in capability between this and the Jackery 1500, except the Pecron. The only difference really between the two is this device, other than all the features that we just ran over, it can act as a UPS. You can, as we talked about earlier, plug-in devices, have this plugged into a wall socket, and if the power goes down, this will continue to power devices. Now, I've worked with Pecron for a while, and I haven't had any issues recommending their products. For some in my community, the fact that it doesn't have all the bells and whistles can actually be a selling point, as there's fewer things that can go wrong with it. If you're looking to power something like a small refrigerator and maybe a few small devices, if the grid were to go down, I'd say it's a good fit compared to a lot of the ones that I've looked at on the market. If you were to combine it with up to 800 watts of solar panels, I think you've got a great option for powering smaller devices and something like a refrigerator. Compensation disclosure. For this video, I didn't get paid up front. Some of the companies that I work with, I do charge a production fee that covers my filming, scripting, editing, all the different things that go into from start to finish to get a video on this channel. For this company, I don't, simply because I have enjoyed their products. I think they're a pretty good product for what you pay for, and so I enjoy showing these to my community so they at least are aware of these. They did send this to me free. I didn't pay for it. And the only time I get compensated and the only time money is exchanged between me and the company is if you do buy one from the affiliate links in the description and comments section or from the spreadsheet. Final thoughts. Overall, I like the product. I did a video a while back on their Pecron 2000 LFP, and it's been a popular seller because it's very capable, it's expandable, and honestly, it's affordable. And I know some are going to point out in the comments section that the battery chemistry is not lithium iron phosphate, which is very popular right now, and you're not wrong. I just think if you're looking for portability and affordability primarily, especially if you're already in the market looking at maybe something like the Jackery 1500, then you might want to take a second look at this. My only complaint with this model was the low AC efficiency. I talked about that earlier in the spreadsheet, but at the price point, especially when we talk about kilowatt hour, it is the most bang for your buck I've seen of any model that I've reviewed so far up to this point on the channel. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts, any questions you may have in the comments section below. And as always, stay safe out there.